Hello, and welcome back to this fourth module of the Digital Education Masterclass. So far, we have spent some time learning where to find quality educational resources and under what conditions we might use them. In this section, we will focus on how you may integrate them in your own educational projects. At the end of this section, you should be able to design an integration scenario for a flipped classroom in a blended learning approach, mixing your own and third-party digital material. To meet the specific secondary learning objectives, you will be asked to break down a section of one of your existing courses into its elementary units, select relevant open educational content to integrate into your course, and build a coherent flipped classroom teaching scenario that integrates the selected third-party digital content. So, here's a recipe to radically transform one of your existing courses. It goes through 4 distinct steps. First, do the chunking, that is, break down the content of your course into its elementary units or learning objects. Second, assemble your course by integrating third-party content such as open educational resources. Third, decide on the level of blending, or said differently, the level of integration of traditional face-to-face learning with computer or web-mediated learning environments. And fourth, adapt your pedagogical model to suit the flipped classroom configuration. The idea of content chunking originates from the work George Miller, a cognitive psychologist of Princeton, did back in the 1950s. Miller demonstrated that humans can process a finite amount of information, and that information overload leads to distraction that negatively affects performance. Cognitive psychology divides our memory system in 2 types: short-term memory, that stores sounds, images, and words, allows for short computations, and filters information that either goes to long-term memory or is discarded. Long-term memory, that allows us to store information based on meaning and importance for extended periods of time, affects our perception and constitutes a framework where new information is attached. Miller's magic number 7, plus or minus 2, is related to the short-term memory and to the maximum quantity of ideas, facts, or issues that people are able to actively attend to at any one time. Moreover, as increasingly complex concepts are delivered, the recall capabilities significantly decrease. To enhance and maximize learning potential, instructors are advised to follow this rule and divide content into manageable units of information. The strategy is to make more efficient use of short-term memory by grouping different pieces of information together. When information is chunked into groups, the brain processes it more easily and faster. For instance, we do it with phone numbers, but we also do it with course content. So chunking allows students to focus their attention on key concepts that are presented, thereby enhancing the power of retention and recall. While chunking is not specific to online courses, and you most probably already do this for your face-to-face ones, chunking is particularly important online, especially if the courses are self-paced. Now, let's say you want to do a thorough revision of one of your courses. You may want to start by breaking it down to its modules, chapters, and sections, and ultimately into its elementary units, such as texts, images, videos, exercises, assignments, etc. These are the chunks of your course. Once you've done this, you may want to replace some of the chunks by others that are more updated or more relevant to the revised learning objectives of your course. Some of these chunks or learning objects may be available as open educational resources, as we have seen in the previous lessons. You may then start assembling the chunks, mixing the new ones with the old ones to rebuild your course. Now, let's have a quick look at another important element of this module, the educational continuum, as conceptualized in the blended learning approach. We are considering the various levels of integration of technology and digital content into a course. As you may see, you could be on the left side during a traditional face-to-face course in a classroom, or at the very right of the scale, delivering a monitoring and e-intensive course entirely online to students sitting in a distant city. Let's take some time to review the intermediate steps. Basic use of ICT entails the creation of an electronic file cabinet that you'll be using to deposit material, such as PDF files or course handouts for your students to retrieve and read them. The next level, the E-enhanced, students may have access to online resources, whilst discussion forums are used to communicate information. In the E-focused level, a learning management system allows for online discussions to be organized and formative assessments and interactive learning material to be made available to students. Of course, these are just names of a model, but the central idea here is that you need to be aware of how far you want to go when you revise your pedagogical approach, and also to anticipate what would this entail in terms of material and human resources. Chunking a course into its elementary units makes it easier to integrate digital educational resources. By doing so, you may also start blending on-site and online activities according to where you want to set the level of integration in the educational continuum. A blended learning strategy may combine in various proportions training activities offered in the presence of the participants and the teacher, as well as distant training activities in synchronous or asynchronous mode. In a traditional class configuration, in-class time is dedicated to the transmission of knowledge. Typically, the teacher will deliver an ex-cathedra course over a given period. Students will take notes and references and will review and study the content once they are back home. The teacher may also assign some additional work in the form of exercises or projects which the students might do at home or on campus under the direct supervision of a tutor. The flipped classroom model starts with a very simple idea. Class time is best used to interact and work together with students, rather than let one person do the talking. In this case, it's most likely you. Students take ownership of the learning and discover the new content and concepts at home or at any place they have access to the resources. Then, they come to the class to ask questions, seek advice, and explore further these new concepts through learning activities and more complex tasks. We say that they enter into a deeper learning mode. After the class, there is still some homework left in the form of a higher cognitive order application or evaluation. In most cases, there is also preparation for the next lesson. The flipped classroom implies a shift from the teacher-centered model to a student-centered approach, and it aims to meet the individual needs of the learner. You may wonder why you would want to change your way of teaching and consider such a flipped classroom setup in an online environment. Well, you may find several good reasons for doing so. First of all, to induce a drastic change in the learning-teaching mindset of the students and of the teachers. Then, it's a great way to prepare the students to work in a connected world. You teach them digital skills by immersion, not just theory. And finally, students are connected and use the internet for all kinds of things. It's more natural to them to find courses material and connect with their peers online. This results to better engagement, though it might at first seem counterintuitive. If you wish to organize your course or part of it in a flipped classroom configuration, there are a few basic rules to follow. Active learning activities need to be organized in class. Quizzes and problem-solving exercises force students to retrieve, apply, and deepen the material learned outside the classroom. When students are provided with real-time feedback, it gives them a real boost to the motivation and engagement. The completion of work outside the classroom, as well as the participation in in-class activities, needs to account for a small but significant part of the student's grade. Students need to perceive an added value of the overall effort. The in-class learning environment must be highly structured and well planned. As a matter of fact, to flip a classroom, you need to take a few steps back and think very carefully of all the activities your students will be performing, whether in class or out of class. Any inconsistencies or improvisation may result in confusion and lower student motivation and participation. In the opposite, as many studies have demonstrated, a well-conceived flipped classroom will increase student engagement and yield better student performance. As part of the integration of open educational resources into your course, we ask you to pick up a section of your lesson plan and see how you could teach a particular topic using third-party open educational resources within a flipped classroom setting. Please carefully follow the instructions provided on the platform and submit your assignment on time. We count on your commitment and look forward to discover your projects.